Hello, my little love. Did you have a good day today? I hope something made you smile. Now take a slow breath, relax your shoulders, and let your mind get soft and quiet. It's time for a gentle bedtime story. Once upon a time, in a peaceful village where rice fields stretched like green carpets and willow trees swayed gently in the breeze, there lived a kind young man named Hungbu. He was poor but had a heart full of goodness, and he lived in a tiny cottage with his sweet wife and their 3 small children. Though they had very little, their home was always filled with laughter and love, and the smell of whatever simple meal they could make from the vegetables in their small garden. Hungbu had an older brother named Nolbu who lived in a grand house on the other side of the village. Nolbu had inherited their parents' wealth and land, and his home was large and comfortable, with many rooms and a beautiful garden. But while Hungbu's small cottage was warm with kindness, Nolbu's grand house felt cold, for Nolbu had grown selfish over the years and thought only of himself. One spring morning, when the air was sweet with the scent of cherry blossoms and the sky was the softest blue, Hungbu was working in his little garden. He was gently turning the soil, preparing to plant seeds for the summer vegetables that would feed his family. The sun was warm on his back, and he could hear his children playing nearby, their giggles floating on the breeze like dandelion seeds. Suddenly, Hungbu heard a sound that didn't belong to the peaceful morning. It was a small chirping cry, worried and afraid. He stopped his work and listened carefully, tilting his head. There it was again, coming from the old persimmon tree at the edge of his garden. Hungbu walked over slowly and looked up into the branches. There, in a nest made of twigs and soft grass, were 3 baby magpies. They were fluffy and small, their mouths open wide, calling for their mother. But one of the babies had somehow fallen from the nest and was lying on the ground, chirping sadly. Hungbu's heart filled with concern. He bent down carefully and picked up the tiny bird, cupping it gently in his hands. It was so small and light, like holding a cloud. The baby magpie's leg looked hurt, bent at an odd angle. "Poor little one," Hungbu said softly. "Don't worry, I'll help you." He brought the baby bird inside his cottage, where his wife brought a clean cloth and some soft cotton. Together, they carefully made a tiny splint for the bird's leg, wrapping it gently so it could heal. They made a small bed for the magpie in a basket filled with soft grass and placed it near the warm hearth. For many days, Hungbu and his family cared for the little magpie. His children would bring it tiny pieces of grain and drops of water. His wife would check the splint each day to make sure it was comfortable. And Hungbu would talk to the bird in a gentle voice, telling it about the weather and the garden and how everything would be all right. Slowly, day by day, the little magpie grew stronger. Its chirps became happier, and it began to hop around its basket. Finally, one morning when the summer sun was painting everything gold, Hungbu could see that the magpie's leg had healed. He carefully removed the splint and carried the basket outside. The mother magpie was perched in the persimmon tree, watching and waiting. Hungbu opened the basket, and the baby bird hopped to the edge, spread its wings, and flew up into the tree where its family was waiting. The magpies chirped and sang, circling around Hungbu's head as if to say thank you, before flying away into the bright blue sky. Hungbu smiled and returned to his work, happy that he could help the little creature. He didn't expect anything in return. Kindness was simply what his heart told him to do. Summer passed like a gentle dream, with warm days and cool evenings. The children grew a little taller, and Hungbu's small garden provided just enough vegetables to feed his family. Though sometimes there wasn't quite enough and they would go to bed with their tummies still a little bit hungry. But they never complained, and they always had each other. When autumn arrived, painting the leaves in colors of gold and crimson and orange, something magical happened. One morning, Hungbu woke to the sound of excited chirping outside his window. He got up and went outside, and there in the persimmon tree was the magpie family he had helped. But this time, the mother magpie had something in her beak. She flew down and dropped it gently at Hungbu's feet, then flew away before he could say thank you. It was a seed, but not an ordinary seed. It glowed softly like a tiny lantern, and it felt warm in Hungbu's hand. His wife came out to see, and they both looked at the seed with wonder. "Let's plant it," his wife said softly. "Perhaps it will grow into something special." And so Hungbu dug a small hole in the best spot in his garden, placed the magical seed inside, and covered it gently with earth. What happened next was like something from a wonderful dream. The seed sprouted almost immediately, sending up a green shoot that grew and grew. Within days, it had become a vine that climbed up a wooden frame Hungbu quickly built. The vine grew thick and strong, with leaves that shimmered in the sunlight, and soon, enormous gourds began to appear, hanging like green lanterns from the vine. When the gourds were ripe and golden, Hungbu carefully cut one down. It was so large he could barely carry it. His whole family gathered around as he took a saw and carefully cut the gourd open. And when he did, the most amazing thing happened. Out tumbled not seeds or pulp, but treasures. There were bags of rice that would feed them for months. There were bolts of beautiful cloth for making warm clothes. There were tools for farming and toys for the children. Each gourd they opened was filled with exactly what the family needed. Hungbu and his family were overjoyed, not because they were now wealthy, but because they would no longer go to bed hungry, and their children would have warm clothes for winter. They shared their good fortune with their neighbors, giving rice to the elderly woman who lived alone, and cloth to the family whose baby had just been born. Kindness had brought them blessings, and they used those blessings to spread more kindness. But news of the magical gourds reached Hungbu's brother Nolbu. When Nolbu heard the story, his eyes grew wide with greed. "If my foolish brother got treasures from helping a bird," he thought, "then I can do the same and get even more riches." He didn't understand that it wasn't the action alone that mattered, but the kindness in the heart behind it. The next spring, Nolbu went walking in the woods behind his house, looking for a bird's nest. When he finally found one in a pine tree, he saw several young magpies inside. Without any care or gentleness, Nolbu reached up and roughly grabbed one of the baby birds. The poor thing chirped in fear and distress. Nolbu took it home, but instead of caring for it tenderly as his brother had done, he quickly wrapped its leg carelessly and impatiently, waiting only for it to heal so he could get his reward. The baby bird was frightened and sad in Nolbu's cold house. There was no gentle talking, no soft basket by a warm fire, no children offering tiny bits of grain with love. As soon as Nobu thought the leg was healed enough, he took the bird outside and released it roughly. The magpie flew away, and Nobu waited eagerly for his reward. Sure enough, the next morning, a magpie came and dropped a seed at Nobu's doorstep. Nobu snatched it up greedily, rubbing his hands together with excitement. He planted it immediately in his large garden, and just like before, it grew into an enormous vine with giant gourds. But when Nobu cut open the first gourd, expecting treasures, something very different happened. Out poured not riches but water, flooding his garden and making mud everywhere. He quickly cut open another gourd, and out came a swarm of butterflies that scattered in all directions, beautiful but not at all what he wanted. Another gourd released a cloud of flower petals that drifted away on the wind. Another spilled out nothing but autumn leaves that crunched and crumbled. Nobu grew more and more frustrated, cutting open gourd after gourd, but finding nothing of value. The last gourd he opened was the largest of all, and when he cut into it, out came something unexpected. It was a mirror, but not an ordinary mirror. When Nobu looked into it, he saw himself as he truly was, selfish and greedy and unkind. He saw all the times he had been cruel to his younger brother, all the times he had refused to help others, all the times he had thought only of himself. Seeing his true reflection shocked Nobu. For the first time in many years, he felt ashamed. He sat down in his muddy garden, surrounded by the empty gourds and scattered petals, and he cried. They weren't angry tears, but sad tears of understanding. He realized how lonely he had become, how cold his big house felt, how empty his life was despite all his possessions. The next day, Nobu walked slowly to his brother's small cottage. He stood at the door, his head lowered, and when Hungbu opened it, Nobu spoke in a quiet voice. "Brother, I have been so wrong. I have been unkind to you all these years. I am sorry. Will you forgive me?" Hungbu's face broke into a warm smile, and without hesitation, he embraced his brother. "Of course I forgive you," he said gently. "You are my brother, and I love you. Come inside. Share a meal with us." And so Nobu stepped into the warm cottage, where Hungbu's children greeted him with shy smiles, and his wife set another bowl at the table. From that day forward, Nobu changed. He began to use his wealth to help others in the village. He shared his land with farmers who had none. He gave food to those who were hungry. He even helped repair Hungbu's cottage and insisted on sharing everything he had with his kind brother. And though he never received magical gourds again, Nobu found something far more valuable. He found happiness in kindness, joy in giving, and love in family. The two brothers and their families remained close for all their days. And sometimes, when spring came and the magpies returned to build their nests, Hungbu and Nobu would work together to make sure the nests were safe and the baby birds were protected. The magpies would sing their cheerful songs, and the brothers would smile, remembering the lesson the little bird had taught them both. True treasure isn't found in gold or riches, but in kindness, love, and the warmth of family. And if you ever visit that village, they say you can still hear the magpies singing their special song, a reminder that every act of kindness, no matter how small, creates ripples of goodness that spread far and wide, like dandelion seeds carried on a gentle breeze to places you might never even see. You did well today, my little love. Now let your eyes grow heavy, and let the night wrap around you like a soft blanket. Sleep well, sweet dreams, and rest deeply.